Hey, what's up? This week, former UFC and WEC champion Anthony Pettis joins us and talks about the highs and lows of his MMA career, what we can expect moving forward, and drops some knowledge for the future generations. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we chat with some of the most influential people in the sports, entertainment, and cryptocurrency space. So if you like to learn some stuff, laugh a little bit, maybe make a little extra money, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and you can also check us out on Spotify and iTunes. We appreciate it. Anthony Pettis, thank you so much for joining us today, man. You know, just doing the prep for this, and obviously, big fan of MMA, big fan of yours. You're looking at your resume, and like you basically beat up everybody who anyone's ever heard of in the MMA space over the last 10 years. So congratulations on that, man.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
So, I want to ask you just first of all, like when you first got started into MMA, what was that first experience like when you walked into your first, like, because you've boxed, you've wrestled, you've done Taekwondo since you were 5. But when you really put it all together, what was that first experience like?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like the reason I got into MMA, and not a lot of people know this, is I own a Taekwondo gym in Wisconsin, a couple of them actually. And me and my older brother were business partners. And we saw the UFC and how popular it was becoming. We're like, yo, we're going to get left behind if we can't teach our students mixed martial arts. So me being the younger brother, he was like, yo, go learn jiu-jitsu pretty much. And I had to find out what the best jiu-jitsu place was in Wisconsin. And I randomly stumbled upon Duke Rufus's gym on Google. And I'm like, man, like I gotta go start training here. I was a kickboxing dash jiu-jitsu gym, kind of like it was before mixed martial arts was a thing. There was no mixed martial arts gyms. It was like kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, it was all separate. So I go sign up at Duke's. I go to Duke's gym, I sign up, and man, like the atmosphere that he had in there, like it was like addicting as heck, man. Like the only way I can like even consider like relate it is like a casino. Like there's so much to do there. It was like so many things that I could get into: jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, fighting, teaching. Like it was just like a kid in like a candy factory. And I got blessed to walk into his gym. But like my dad died when I was 16, so that was like exactly the same time frame of me finding mixed martial arts. So I was 16 years old. My dad was killed in a house robbery across the street from my house. You know, like so at 16, you're kind of deciding what kind of man you're going to be. I mean, are you going to prom or homecoming? You know, like that was the decisions I was making at that time. Then my dad got killed, you know, and it changed everything. Like my whole perspective of life was like, how do I make my little brother have a good life? And I was 16 when I had to do that. You know, I'm paying my mom. I was paying rent, you know, at my house in high school. But martial arts allowed me to do that. And that's why, you know, I give everything back to martial arts. And when I found MMA, it was just my calling, like something you like, you know, when you're like, this is it. Like it just happened. Like it just clicked. And I knew that was the path I was going to go on.
And that's funny, man. Like I know about your dad's situation, and you just had another daughter. So,
Yeah.
You know, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you know, like it's funny because you said like that was like your calling, and that's one of the things that I've always been really passionate about. Is like you got to find things right, like that, like you can't not do. And like you said, like that's like you can't see yourself doing anything that wasn't MMA. Do you think like when your dad passed, that like really kind of was a catalyst to lighting a fuel for you being a professional fighter?
Man, that's weird. So like a lot of people think that, like they're like, oh, it's like the anger from him losing his pops. But like my dad started me in Taekwondo. Well, my mom did, but my dad would take me to the tournaments and he made me like compete. So he was like there at all my competitions. Like his like line to me, like as a kid, it was like, "I the tiger, mijo," and that's like I always remember that. Before every fight, I'm thinking that in my head, and like he's there with me. And I never really fight out of like anger. I think it made me find something that I had to give all my attention to because I was so distracted in the normal life, right? I was in high school and I was doing the normal life. But once I lost him, my mindset changed, you know, like I was like, man, I have to pay bills now. Like I have to support my mom, my little brother. And they gave me that mindset change of like, all right, kind of maturity. Like I'm sure when you have kids.
I do. I've got 4 kids, man. I've got twins that are 10. I've got a 21-year-old son, and then I have a newborn also. That's 1 year old. So yeah, we've got a lot of parallels there.
So, yeah, my daughter's 10, and then my newborn. You know, so it's a big gap between the two. But so you know when you have your first kid, and like your whole mindset changes. You're like, holy now, and now it's not just about me. That was forced upon me at 16, man, and like I had to like think differently. And I think MMA was my distraction from that, which is wild. Like I was like so focused on how do I pay the bills, how do I get my mom to be okay, like my little brother, make sure he's finishing school and doing what he's supposed to be doing. And then MMA was like my distraction. And when I was in MMA, I was like, dude, I'm not even thinking about none of that stuff. So it wasn't like a fuel. It was more of a distraction from that life.
Yeah. And you come from a traditional background in martial arts. I mean, some guys, like outside of the sport, people sometimes can view it as this like roughneck. These guys are fighters, and there's a blurred line between the martial artist side too. That I think that,
Definitely.
people that started in the martial arts aspects really bring forward. What do you do mentally to prepare for a fight? Like when you're in the back there, you're let's just say you're on your way from the host hotel to the venue. Where's your head at? What's going on?
And that's an amazing question, honestly. Like these are great questions, because like usually these interviews are way different, like, but that changed in the beginning to where I'm at right now. So like I think as my experience in life changed, and like my understanding of feelings, actions, and emotions changed, I could actually get into that process. So I used to get hooked. Like my sports psychologist, he helps me understand feelings, thoughts, and actions. It's like our brains are programmed, like it's like a radio station, to go to triple F: fears, flaws, and failures. And if we get attached to one of them thoughts, we're gonna make decisions like fuse, like with goggles on, if you will. And it's not our real, like, true value. So like I learned how to detach myself from fears, flaws, and failures, and bring myself back to the present moment. And then when I'm training, like when I'm in the gym, I do some mindful stuff. Like when I take a shower, I make sure I'm in the shower. I'm not, my mind isn't going all over the place. And when I'm in the gym, I am mindful that I'm in the gym, and I'm not thinking about how my paying bills or what I got to do next. And if you can attach to that, that's the best results I've gotten in the octagon. When I'm present in the octagon and I'm not thinking about what's next or what I'm doing later, and it's so hard to do because our brains are literally programmed to go to these fears, flaws, and failures. And I'm about to have a result that's a win or a loss. And most people think in wins and losses, right? So like when we're kids, are like, you're good or you're not good. And then when I found out like there's like a medium between that, like just because I lost doesn't make me not good. And I'm getting deep into that, but yeah, bro, I got mindset coaching, and it changed my whole career.
What do you think is the biggest distraction that you face going into fights?
Social media.
Social media.
Social media is like and my career happened when social media started. I think I made my Instagram when I was the champ of the UFC. So like it was all access to these athletes, and never before was this done. Like basketball players and NFL players, like they couldn't just message them in their inbox, and then MMA starts becoming popular. And I mean, these fans have opinions, and it's up to you to be able to, like, again, fears, flaws, and failures, detach from one comment before it takes you down that wrong path. Like you suck at wrestling, and boom, now you're like only doing wrestling. And that's what happened to me in my career. I heard that, like, I lost my belt. Like, Pettis has no wrestling, and I literally only did wrestling, and it took away from what I was actually good at, and it kind of hurt my career a little bit.
So, you talked about leveling up this year. What does that mean exactly? You said on Instagram, you got to level up this year.
Yep. My whole mindset is always being the better version of myself. Like, and a lot of people, like, they see me, they're like, oh, he's the UFC champ and he lost his belt. But man, I'm in a better spot mentally, physically, and emotionally than I was last year. And that's what leveling up is to me. It's like, how do I be the best version of myself? Whether it's in the octagon, whether it's being a father, whether it's being a husband, a brother, a son. Like I want to be the best version of myself. And that's what I always focus on.
What's one thing that you wish that like the casual MMA fans knew more about the sport?
I would say the background, like I think these guys get in and they see these bloody fights, and they see like what the sport has become now. But like to get to that spot, I would consider myself one of the pioneers. Like I did the Showtime kick. I was on the Wheaties box, and like I got a lot of eyes over to MMA, and we're talking like 10 years ago. And now how many eyes are MMA? Like they don't really understand the history of the sport. And like you said, like I'm a martial artist. So like for me, like even like I own a couple of gyms. Like I tell my parents and my students, like my vehicle to teach life skills is martial arts. But what we're really doing is teaching life skills. So like you see these martial artists like fighting each other with some tattoos. They have this like mindset of, oh, these guys are barbaric, they're not smart, they don't, and I had to deal with that a lot coming in, like making people understand, like, no, this is like, I learned martial arts as a vehicle to learn confidence, self-esteem, discipline, how to even, represent myself. Like I grew up in a shitty neighborhood in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, lost my father at a young age, but I feel like martial arts is the reason why I can carry myself the way I do.
What do you think a martial art is, that a traditional martial art that people talk shit about, that you think actually could be applicable in the MMA space and maybe people should train more?
Yeah, I think Taekwondo, man, like my discipline itself. I think most people are like, oh, that's fake. And, even my gyms, like people are like, oh, that's the commercialized version of martial arts. But I made it practical, man. I'm jumping off cages. Like literally that Showtime kick that I did that was like so famous. I just posted it today, actually. It's the 11th year anniversary of it, which is wild, man.
Finally, we can get some footage of that. No one's seen it yet.
Yeah.
That's the kick scene around the world, man.
So when I did that, that came from jumping off walls and breaking boards in a demo team, and that's the concept came from that. So like that's the Taekwondo part of mixed martial arts, and that's the flashy part, man. People love them spin kicks, jump kicks, and the things that you don't always see, like them knockouts. And I built my career on that, honestly. Like that's why my nickname Showtime, just because my fighting style has Taekwondo behind it.
Were there ever any other potential nicknames that you kind of vacillated between besides Showtime?
Pretty boy.
Pretty boy. That doesn't age well though. That nickname, like you can't be 90 years old and to be pretty boy.
Exactly. Nah, man, Showtime worked perfect. So like the way Showtime came about is my coach Duke Rufus. We were fighting on the same card. It was his last retirement fight in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I was the co-main event. And it was wild. They're fighting on the same card as my coach, and I get my shoulder dislocated in the fight, and I still I stand up and my shoulder was like out, and I head kick knock out the guy, and like I forget the first round. And Duke right after that was like, man, he's like passed the torch. He's like, man, you're Showtime. Like this is your city now. And man, that's how it all started.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like everyone in their mother that's ever watched an MMA fight and has watched, I think arguably your kick of Ben Henderson off the cage is the most spectacular knockout for a myriad of reasons in the sport. That's obviously a huge win. If you could go back and you look back at your record, if there was one fight that you wish you could have back, what would that one be?
Tony Ferguson.
Instant.
Oh man, yeah, we went to war. Me and Tony went to war, and that's like, and it looks bloody, and it looks like it looks. I think it looks more barbaric to people than it really is. Like a cut on your eyebrow isn't like as bad as a concussion in boxing. Like that's way worse. So like that fight, we were bloody, we were having fun, we were smiling. Like it was honestly just pure joy. Like I was like, man, this is just a fun time. And I broke my hand, almost knocked him out, and then I broke my hand on the second punch. And it was just like one of them fights where you can't fight that guy with one less weapon that you already have. So my coach called it, and we never got to see that third round.
Yeah, is that one of those fights where like I feel like everyone sometimes, not to make this about me, but when I was fighting in the local circuit and then like I leveled up in competition, I fought Thiago Alves. That was my first exposure to go, oh yeah, there's another level.
Thiago's my boy, man. That's crazy, bro. Thiago legit is like a real pioneer of this sport.
Yeah, and I love Thiago. He's going to be on the podcast. We've done seminars together and stuff. We're good friends now. But like that was my first exposure that like, oh man, like there's some killers out there at because the B circuits, you're cutting your teeth on guys they don't know if they're making it a living yet, especially back 10, 15 years ago when nobody was like, yo, this is my career path. Some guys were hobbyists taking these fights on the weekends. That was my first time that I was like, oh no, that's not a good fight. Was there a pivotal time in your career at all that you were like, okay, this was your first loss was to Bart Palzewski in WEC, right?
Yeah.
So did you go back to the drawing board after that and make some changes, or did you just keep kind of trucking?
Dude, that fight, Bart Palzewski, I don't even know the story. So like probably 2 months before that fight, I fell off a motorcycle and dislocated my shoulder, and I had shoulder surgery. So if you watch that fight, I couldn't even pick my left arm up to defend. I had to fight him like this because I had my AC joint came out my skin. It was nuts. And at that point, man, I was just like, I was a wild boy. I was like, yo, I'm not pulling out this fight. And Duke's like, you sure? So if you watch that fight, literally, I couldn't hold my guard up. So I had to fight him like this. And I thought I won that fight still. But yeah, it's wild. When I look back at my career, I'm like, man, I was doing some crazy things at a young age.
Yeah, well, speaking of your career, obviously you could look at your record and it's pretty easy to figure out what were some of the highlights and lowlights in the cage. What do you think have been some of the highlights and lowlights of your MMA career outside of the cage?
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, that pursuit after I lost the belt. All right, we'll go to that part of my career. I did the Showtime kick. I was supposed to fight for the UFC world title because the WC champ was going to fight the UFC champ. Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard fight to a draw. So I was like forced to fight Clay Guida. I lose to Clay Guida. So I had these crazy up and downs like in that spot. And then all of a sudden I go on this tear and I'm on the Wheaties box and, I'm on ESPN top 10s. First, I think I was one of the first MMA guys on ESPN top 10s with that Showtime kick. And then we're talking 11 years ago now. So like I had some super high highs and then I had some super low lows, and I'd never understood how to deal with those times, man. I didn't understand, like, my emotions were making me, like, my feelings were making me make decisions that I normally wouldn't make. And I was making these fused decisions in my life, and I put myself in some bad spots, like just emotionally. Like I was letting the like I said, social media can get you big time, man. If you put a lot of effort and thought into that, and you let these like comments get you, it changes your mindset. And then you as a person, without even knowing, you're on autopilot making these decisions that you normally wouldn't make. So I learned a lot in my career from the high highs and low lows. The lowest I've ever been probably was after I lost to RDA. You know, I was the world champion. He took my belt and he whooped my ass. That was the first time I've ever got my ass whooped. I think before that, I don't think I ever bled in a fight before I fought RDA. I never bled in a fight before RDA. No, even gave me a black eye, which is wild. And then RDA, you know, he really whooped my ass, and like I was like, man, this is what could happen. And like I was on the other side of it for the first time. You know, like I was like, man, I'm not the guy in the leads box. I'm the guy that, yeah, it was different. The mindset was different, and dealing with that was really hard, honestly, man. It was it seeped into my family life. It seeped into my business life. I was making decisions that I normally wouldn't make because my feelings were in charge of my actions.
So, you know, in prepping for the interview, like I was watching a bunch of your other interviews, and I came across some footage of a YouTuber that put together a highlight reel of yours that basically said, how good was Anthony Pettis really? And he highlights your career. And they put it up like 5 months ago. And obviously, I mean, you're a great fighter. You've got, nobody can dispute that. You have amazing knockouts, only knockout over Stephen Thompson. But over the last couple of years, it's been an up and down trajectory, right? Have you ever thought about how much longer you're going to compete, or are you going and questioning, should I still fight? Do I still have the drive, or did you make some changes that the fans can expect to see a different Anthony Pettis? Because you got a lot going on, man. You got bars, kids.
The guys are getting better. Like the people, there aren't, just like you said, there's not hobbyists doing this. Like, and if you're not competing, like, and I hate to say this, but like I think GSP said this quote, or his coach was like, when you're sleeping on silk pillows, it's hard to wake up and, you know, get to the gym with the boys. And I try to live by that. Like if I go out, if I go out with the boys, I go to work with the men, and I try to like get into that. But guys are getting better, man. Like it's just the sport is evolving where the competition isn't the same. And COVID really messed me up. No lie, like fighting with no fans is not the same for me. Like I don't think I would ever take a fight without fans ever again, because it's just, I don't feel excited about it. And it sucks to say that, but it's like, man, it's just that's what makes me drive. Like I do a crazy kick and fans go crazy. It's like, it's a different feeling where I just hear my coach like, oh, great job. It's like, it was weird, man. It felt like a sparring session. So the last, the year before that, I fought Cowboy and I fought Alex Morano, and that was with no fans, but it was in the UFC platform. And it was like my going away of the UFC, if you will. So I was very motivated because I was like, yo, this is my last couple fights in the UFC. And then I got to the PFL, and this version of it, like, it was hard to find the motivation. No lie. It was just like, we had a quarantine for like 20 days or 21 days before the fight. So my family wasn't there. No fans in the audience. When I walk out, it was like, no cheering or nothing. It was a weird vibe, man. So I feel like, it's more of like that aspect of it. Like my skill set is still there as well. You know, I'm training every day. I'm still running. I'm still doing my thing. But, you know, guys are getting better. And if my motivation isn't lined up with the competition, you know, I know what's going to happen. As far as retiring, man, I don't think I'll ever retire, honestly. Like I love this too much. Like all I know is training camps. Like I lived my life so much by this. Like every time I had a fight, it was like three fights a year. I would have 8-week training camps, no alcohol, no partying, no eating good food. You know, I had to cut like 30 pounds. And if that goes away in my life, I don't know what I'd be doing, man. So I feel like, I don't think I'll ever announce a retirement, but, you know, once I start feeling like, all right, this isn't for me, or I'm, you know, taking some damage, or things aren't going my ways like I wanted to, I'll slowly fade out, but I don't think I'll ever announce a retirement.
I think if you retired, I think I know exactly what you'd be doing. You'd be fishing a lot more than you do, and you fish a ton, right? What's your fishing record?
Man, I fish everywhere I go, right? So I mean, me and my lady, like I live my life by like experiences, man. Like when I die, I want to make sure I have a lot of experience. I spend money on vacations and my family to see nice things. Like that's where I spend my money at. So, and my passion is fishing. So like every time we go to a different island or a different place, I'm on a boat fishing, and luckily my fiance, my wife, loves it too. So, my fishing record, I would say the biggest fish I ever caught was a yellowfin actually in where was I? Turks and Caicos, a monster yellowfin. Yeah, I forget it was like I forget the weight of it, but I got a picture of it. I'll post it up actually.
Do you catch and release, or do you catch and cook them up?
Well, if it's like one of those, man, we had sushi for the whole trip. I did that the first day, and it was like a 7-day vacay. I took it to the restaurant, and they were just making us yellow, like jalapeno yellowtail the whole fucking trip. It was cool.
Yeah, there's not a lot of really good fishing in Milwaukee. I like some of the lakes there. I'm from Chicago, so we
From
have
Milwaukee's amazing fishing.
Really?
So I live on Lake Michigan, so my condo's actually on the lake. So what I take my boat out. I just walk right to my boat, and they stock it with salmon and trout. So in the winter, the salmon all come back, and it's the funnest ever. You put on a spawn sack and you throw a bobber out, and you're fighting a monster salmon. Like it's a crazy fight. So it's fun. I let my daughters do it. Like it's cool.
I think I'm just spoiled, man, because I live in South Florida, like Fort Lauderdale, Miami. It's like the fishing capital of the world. It's crazy.
I mean, like when I fished out in Florida, I was just out there actually. Me and Serge did his birthday in Key West. We were catching sharks off the back dock of our Airbnb. I was like, yo, this is not compared.
It's like playing a video game. It's so different.
Yeah,
it's
you don't
like,
know what's
what?
gonna come up. Yeah.
That's what's kind of cool, right? Like you go fishing, and that's the first time I usually fish for like grouper and stuff. So I'm going low, and it was getting late, and I'm pulling up, and I pulled up like this huge 6-foot shark, and I wasn't expecting that because it's like you're playing the claw game with nature. You know, you're dropping the anchor down, and you're kind of going, I hope I get a prize, and you come up, and you're like, oh, this is a tough fight, but you don't know what the hell's on the bottom of that thing. And I was like, what do I do with this? I just pull up this huge shark to the side of the boat, and I'm like, I don't need this in my life right now. So, and I'm
nothing like ocean fishing. I swear, ocean fishing is different.
Yeah. So, what's the best and worst thing about living in Milwaukee?
I live in Vegas.
Well, when you lived in Milwaukee, Vegas is easy. We know the best of.
Yeah, in Vegas, man. Oh man, the best thing here is the food. Like you can get 5-star dining at 5 a.m., 3 a.m. if you want. Milwaukee, the best thing about living in Milwaukee is no distractions. Like literally I was there and I was locked in, man. I think that's why I became who I was, is because of my surroundings. Like literally I had family and friends and stuff, but like I had no distractions there, man. I was really focused in on my goals and what I wanted to accomplish. The worst thing about living in Milwaukee, the weather, the winter, man. Like every time you wake up to go to practice, it's like you wake up at 6 a.m. It's like -0. Everything hurts. Every injury hurts. You're just like trying to find every reason not to go do that workout. So I would say the weather.
Oh man, it's funny. You've had some watershed moments in your career. You know, you've WEC champion, amazing knockouts. You're finishing guys left and right. UFC lightweight champion. You audition for The Ultimate Fighter. You don't get put on the show. You end up being the champ in the UFC. Then later you come back. You coach The Ultimate Fighter. So obviously, like with shows like Dana White and the Contender Series and PFL just announced that they're going to start doing like a feeder show. What advice do you have to the next generation of guys specifically that are trying to kind of get up through the ranks through these like feeder TV shows?
Yeah, man. Get good health insurance would be my biggest advice. I think, man, what's happening right now in the mixed martial arts world is amazing. There's actually opportunities now, right? Where it's not like one league or one place to fight at. You know, I pushed my little brother over to Bellator. We both had careers in the UFC. I'm fighting the PFL. Khabib just opened up Eagle FC, put a different weight classes, and there's so much opportunity in the MMA world right now. And I think if you look at it, it's crazy. The growth of MMA is like it's above NFL, NBA, worldwide sports. It's close to soccer where our fan base is at. So it's one of the biggest sports there is. So like if you're up and coming, you got to understand, you got to create a brand in this. Like if you're going to do this, you can't just be a fighter. You got to have a brand that can last and you can do something after with. And I think that's what I created. So actually I already started a Showtime Fighting Championship is starting February 11th. And I just signed a deal with the UFC network. So I'll be on UFC Fight Pass with my show. And I'm basically doing the same thing, going to every city, finding the local talent and giving them a platform to perform on. So back when I was coming up, man, I was fighting Harley Davidson dealerships and those sports bars. So it's cool to see where the sport is going and who knows where it's headed. You know, it's awesome to be part of it.
Yeah, it's crazy how the sport's evolved too, because you mentioned like fighting obviously in like these little podunk back bar rooms, and that's so Miguel Torres, who everybody knows, good friend of mine from Chicago. So like it was like me, Miguel Torres, and Stephan Bonner. We were kind of like the three people in the Chicago Hammond area that were always fighting on the same cards, training together.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
Yeah, so Miguel Torres and I almost fought like the first time because we were both at this bar, Finky's, and like we did. The promoter Braulio Coro was like, "No, you guys both train. It's cool. Like that's not why you guys are here. You're like this, like, so like that's why I met him, and he's like this little 40-pound small. He didn't care. He wanted to fight anybody, man. He's a tough
He
kid,
didn't
but
care, man. That dude,
he's
honestly,
great.
bro, Miguel Torres in his prime time, I was I say pound for pound best fighter around, man. Like he was the first guy that put it all together. He's fighting off his back, jiu-jitsu. I mean, I seen him spar heavyweights, and I'm like, yo, this guy's a killer. Like he was different. And then,
he has no quitting.
Had to go in the car and be drinking tequila. I'm like, dude, this guy's a monster, man. Yeah, Miguel Torres is for like one of my idols, honestly. I put my style after him on the ground. If you look at my ground style, jiu-jitsu, I modeled it after him. Super dangerous off your back and always punching to make it like MMA jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's hard because like, he and you are some of the few people that were really active off their back. A lot of guys get taken down, and it's tough to be on your back. And when guys can, like, how to stop that hip movement and you're stopping the arm bars, it's way easier to learn to defend being in guard than it is to really be a super offensive guy from guard. But you, Miguel Torres, there's only been a handful of guys that have been really successful with like transitioning from like the arm bar to the triangle that you had in WEC and things like that. If tomorrow morning, for some reason, you became the president of MMA, what's the first thing you would change?
Weight cutting. Man, it's bad for all these guys. I think all these athletes, and they don't understand, like, I've been doing it, and I've been doing it for 14, 15 years now, which is crazy. And like, I mean, we're talking about cutting 30 to 40 pounds. Like, I fought at 145 and I'm walking around 185, so I'm cutting 40 pounds to get down there. And it's so bad for your health. It's so bad for your mind. It's just your mindset in general. Like that's why you see fighters blowing up. They get on these like yo-yo diets is what I call it. Right? It's like, oh, I got a training camp. I got to be super strict. And then when I'm done with the fight, I go whatever I want. And then you start living your life that way, and you see these like fluctuations in weight. You see these guys, and you can see it. And eventually it catches up to you. Like that only lasts for so long. Where you're like, all right, now this weight cut's going to hurt me and I'm dying. And then all of a sudden your performance shows that you had a hard weight cut. So I think weight cutting is actually taking away from what MMA could be. Like, these guys could probably do way more. Like, I could probably do a couple Showtime kicks in a fight if I didn't cut 40 pounds before the fight.
What do you walk around at right now?
185.
185. So that's like a good weight to cut to welterweight, right? Like, you just 15 pounds, you feel comfortable there?
Yeah, I would say that makes sense, right? But like, now you got guys cutting from 200 pounds to 155. You got guys cutting from like, if you're 170, most guys aren't walking around under 200 pounds. So like, now for me, as where I'm at, it's like, shit, I have to go down to 155 because these guys at 170 are too big.
Yeah, that's like when
I fought at 170 too. Like, I fought Wonder Boy, and I got the knockout. I fought Nate Diaz, and I fought Alex Morano. I fought Cowboy, all at welterweight. And then I fought my world title at lightweight, and then I went down and fought Max Holloway at featherweight. So like you said, I fought all these guys, but if I could go back and do it, I wouldn't cut that weight like that. That was the worst thing I could do, is cut that much weight.
Do you feel like as you get older too, you want to fight at the higher weight classes because it's more, it's easier on the body than having to cut 15, 20 pounds and be stressed out?
I think at this point, I'm like, yo, if I could fight, I could fight. If me cutting weight isn't going to help me win that fight. And that's how I kind of look at it now. It's like, if I have to cut an extra 15 pounds to go win a world title, like, then I'm not in my right weight class.
I think everybody and their mother should have to like cut weight one time in their life just to see how just arduous that process is. The first 5 pounds, people go, oh man, I lost 6 pounds training today in jiu-jitsu. I'm like, it's not the first 6, it's the last 2. It's tough to get those off.
That last 1 pound, bro.
Yeah,
that's the one.
It's like an eternity. You're like, you haven't peed in like 35 hours. You're like as emaciated as you can get.
Yeah, like that's what I look forward to. Like, when I'm cutting weight, I that's the after I cut weight, I'm like, all right, it's over. Like, the fight don't even matter. I'm like, all right, I did it.
Right. You're so excited to get food and some fluid in you. It's like, oh, it tastes so good. It's amazing. You said you're never going to retire, but at some point, I'm sure that will happen, right? What do you want your legacy to be?
I made my legacy, man. Like, I feel like I wanted to be the baddest dude that fought the baddest dudes. Like, I was the guy who was like, yo, who's the best? That's who I want to fight. And you look at my career, man, like, I fought killer after killer after killer after killer. Like, there was no easy fights in my resume. And I did pretty fucking good, man. So I feel like my legacy is like, obviously the Showtime kick, that style of fighting. Guys are trying to do that as well. But like, if you look at boxing and you look at UFC, like, look at the resume and see what kind of fighter that guy was, because like it that matters to me. Like, when we're talking like GOAT talk, I'm like, look at the resume, then it tell you like who's the GOAT of the sport.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. So just moving on from the MMA space, talk to us about Clone X4239, your
Oh
NFT.
man, I got lucky with that. So I mean, I'm into the crypto world. You know, I've made some great money off of this space. But the Clone X project just made sense. I mean, Artifacts is, you know, one of the leading guys when it comes to this digital art, and they partnered up with Murakami. So I already knew it was going to be a huge project. So I bought I think about 4 vials at like $10,000 each, 2.5 Ethereum at that point, maybe 12, a little under $12,000. And man, one of them turned into a gem, man. Like I probably won't sell that thing for less than 500,000, or even like closer to 750
Is that
for a
your
$10,000 investment.
wow, that's crazy. And you have a few different NFTs too. You've had that oh, not the space chimp, but I forget which one. You've one of the
Space
chimps.
Age, yeah.
Space Age. Yeah.
Yeah, that project is with Offset. So I'm with so Bitcoin Latinum is like coming into the crypto world. If any guys are into that, check it out. LTNM is Bitcoin Latinum, and I was a early investor in on that because I believed in their project as well. The first coin that's like green based, like 70% less energy than mining Bitcoin and all that stuff. So I got behind them. They got into they made like, this is actually a cool story. They made a fighter draft. So all these guys, I went to this kind of a fight, I guess, but it was a party. These guys fought and you were allowed to buy their NFT at the ground level. Genius idea, but I feel like we're still a little bit away from that yet. But it was cool to see like that the two worlds collide. But Offset and Takeoff, which is, you know, the Migos, like Cardi B's husband, Offset.
Sure. Yeah.
So their group is the one that made Apes in Space. So what they're trying to do is like essentially buy a concert venue in the meta world. So hip hop concerts, any concerts are done there. So if you own those Apes in Space, you want 1% of their project in the meta world. That was my key on getting into that.
There's a really good project too in the metaverse in the VR space called Sensorium, and that's Jay-Z's company bought them, and they have like David Guetta and a bunch of people. They're doing like VR concerts. They're like the leader in having like virtual reality, augmented reality. We're gonna have all these concerts and be able to go and hang out with
That's
people.
awesome.
Yeah, there's some crazy stuff out there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like no one knows what's coming, but like honestly, I know it's big, and I'm getting behind everything. Like everybody on my Instagram is like, "Oh, Pettis is buying everything." I'm like, no, I'm looking into the projects that I know are going into that space. Another cool project, and I'm all over the place with it, but Boxing Boys. So these guys are coming out, and they're starting as a coin, and you can buy and stake their coin, but they're giving out these VR headsets and boxing gloves where you can essentially box anybody around the world. So like I can box my fans in the metaverse.
Oh, that's awesome.
We could bet on the boxing. I mean, so it's a cool ass concept. Yeah, so that's another project I'm getting behind as well.
How did you get involved in the crypto space? Was Ben Askren, one of your training partners, a big catalyst?
Ben was preaching the crypto to me forever, and I didn't even look at it. Randomly, I got lucky. I was at a conversation. I was at a dinner with a couple of my friends that I didn't even know were into crypto. They started talking crypto, and I'm like, "What the hell is this stuff?" I didn't know what Ethereum even was or what a MetaMask was. So I had one of my guys set me up. He set me up a MetaMask, and we got in on a couple coins that I can't even say it. This is how recent it was. It was called WizCoin. I think it's still around. And I was on the first jump. So I played 10K and it jumped up to like 200,000 and I was hooked immediately. Now I talk money. So I was like, yo, this is the space that I need to be figuring out. So ever since then, man, I've literally been at my computer and researching and understanding the space and seeing what's possible in this world. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty involved in this.
It's crazy too, because PFL is, and I think that like we don't even have an, regulation that's clear and cut around Bitcoin yet, but the watershed moment I think will be a spot ETF. However, like the NFTs, the metaverse, I think we're still several years away. So like people are like, oh, these projects, they see these huge gains, but we're still so early. Like if a project is going to be around in 10 years, don't worry about what it is now. It's going to be worth 50 times what it is right now. If it's exactly as long as it has sustainability.
That's the hard part for me right now. Like I'm trying to and I love this space. So that's why I post about it. And I'm like, it's information. You know, if I post about it, man, my DMs are like, check out this project. So that's why I just keep spreading that awareness. But like the average person don't understand it enough to like, oh, what is that? It's a piece of art. And they don't really understand the community behind it and the projects that are behind that piece of art, which provides the value on that. So it's hard to explain, man. Like even to like my financial guys, I'm like, yo, this isn't just the painting. This is what's behind the painting is why it's like the artifact deal, like Nike acquisition on the day of the release of a vial that I bought for 10,000. That's just a perfect storm of things that happen. It's hard to explain to the average person.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people know like Beeple, and Beeple is finally excited because he's like, I can finally monetize my digital artwork, and sold for millions and millions of dollars. What's cool too is like the PFL, they onboarded Chili's, and they're doing their fan token and stuff, and they're really ahead in the crypto space, and they're doing some NFTs. So that could be a cool spot to.
Yeah, I'm looking at all that. I eventually seen these like the PFL will actually have its own blockchain where it actually has a community where it's supported, right? Like if I could mint a fighter NFT, and then I can have a PFL coin, if you will, and it has real value in the PFL where I can like do meet and greets, I could have seats at the fights or have access to their library. I'd rather spend that money on an NFT than paying $300 for a ticket that only gets me to see the fight. I'd rather pay $300 NFT that I could possibly get a ticket, but I'm invested in. And then you put in like the gaming world to it, man. Imagine when like a game can be attached to that, and you can have your own fighter that can earn real coins in this blockchain. That, man, it's just insane when I think about it.
It's crazy because like in a lot of ways, early crypto kind of parallels early MMA. When it first came out, people were kind of they disregarded it. They're like, that's some shit that is never going to catch on. And then as it caught on and people kind of figured out, all right, this isn't going anywhere. Then they started turning their heads and going, what is it? And then it just started expanding and growing. And that's really what we're seeing in the crypto space.
I never thought about that. That's an amazing analogy, bro. Honestly, it's exactly the same. Yeah, literally, like MMA was there and no one even knew about it. And all of a sudden, one person got involved, the right person got involved. And it's mainstream, probably the biggest sport. I mean, that's exactly what crypto's doing right now.
Yeah, it's badass, man. I know I had Kenny Florian. I have to have you back when I have Kenny on to talk about some crypto stuff, because I'm a huge crypto nerd myself. Like, I've been involved in crypto for like 2000.
Let's after this interview, let's exchange some tips, man. I'm looking all for it, bro.
Yeah, for sure, man. There's some good stuff out there. I just had so there was I'm a big Bitcoin nerd, and if you ever watch any of the documentaries like Banking on Bitcoin or Bitcoin: The End of Money as We Know It on Netflix, there's a guy Charlie Shrem in there, and not to get too far into that subject, but like I just had Ben Mesrich on, who's one of my favorite authors. He wrote the book Bringing Down the House, which turned into the movie 21. He wrote the Antisocial or Accidental Billionaires, which turned into the movie The Facebook Network. He just wrote a book that you should check out. It's called Bitcoin Billionaires, and it's about the Winklevosses and how they became these huge billionaires, and they're making a movie out of that. So that's interesting if you get some free time.
I literally just downloaded that book on Audible because I ran across like I think it was like NFT, like one of those NFT accounts. They have like the Winklevosses version of the metaverse. I'm like, I got to learn about that as well, man. There's so much information that I need to catch up on. But yeah, it's funny you said that, because like I was like, I didn't even know who them guys were at first. I saw the movie, but I didn't understand how into this world they are and how much they made off of this world. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's well, not to get too much into their story, but like what happened was when they left Facebook, they couldn't find anybody. They got this huge settlement from Facebook, but they couldn't find tech investors that would take their startup capital, because everyone was like, well, that's great, but you have a shitty relationship with Mark Zuckerberg, and one of our exit strategies is Facebook buys everything. So they were like, man, what do we do with all this money? And then they haphazardly got invested into Bitcoin, and they started buying like 100,000 clips of Bitcoin at like $12 each, like just crazy. Imagine just, oh my God. But it's crazy because, like Ben said, lightning rarely strikes twice. They're in the right spot for Facebook and then for Bitcoin. So they're doing something right, man. And just like you are, man. And I really appreciate you taking the time, bro. And definitely have you back on. We'll talk some crypto and offline and online. So appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on, man.
All right, brother. Take it easy, man. Best to the family. Cheers.
Later.